I'm standing in the middle of a field in North Yorkshire, but it's not just any old field. Where I'm standing now is actually the centre of an ancient Neolithic henge, a Stone Age earthenwork in the shape of a giant circle. But this isn't just any old Stone Age henge. In fact, this site is so special because it contains 3 of these, over a mile apart from one end to the other, all of them linked. This is a sacred landscape. Welcome to Thornborough Henges. So this henge is the southern henge. There's 3, the southern, the middle and the north. And this bit is the entrance to the southern henge. There's 2 entrances to each henge. Over there, I don't know if you can make that out, that is the northern entrance to this particular henge. And now I'm going to walk up onto the earthenwork, the bank, to see from a different perspective. It's not very high, there's not much left. But what is here is remarkable because it's survived nearly 5,000 years. And you can see where the grass is different. This yellow, dry grass marks out the ring. But further down there, there's another one. And then right in them trees at the very back is the 3rd. So this site's been called the Stonehenge of the North, and there's an absolutely great reason why. Because it's such a significant site. This entire area, according to archaeologists and historians, is just as significant spiritually to ancient people as Salisbury and Orkney and other places like that. But we just don't know about it, we just don't hear about it because places like this are so low profile. Being here, there's actually not much to point to except a load of grass. But the best way to see its significance and see its scale, of course, is to be up in the sky. The site is located here on a wide plateau beside the River Ure in North Yorkshire. This is thought to be a ritual landscape dotted with significant ancient remains dating back thousands of years to the early Bronze Age and even the late Stone Age. The dominant feature of the landscape is this figure here, 3 circular henges joined by a long, wide avenue. All 3 henges are similar in size, an incredible 240 metres in diameter, and about 550 metres apart from each other, making the whole site just over a mile in length. Now, like any henges found throughout Britain, the exact purpose of these 3 at Thornborough are not really well known. Henges themselves would have been very significant to the people that used them. They were, after all, incredible feats of human effort for the time. To be quite explicit, a henge is a circular earthenwork bank with a ring ditch sitting inside the bank. Inside of the circle could be found wooden posts, sacred stones, or in many cases, including at Thornborough, nothing at all. And while they may not have had a direct funerary function, like barrows or tombs, the fact that they are contemporary to such sites suggests they were used as part of a funeral procession, as part of a ritual landscape. And an interesting side note, folks, the word henge comes from Stonehenge itself, yet Stonehenge isn't technically a henge, because it doesn't have the earth bank, ring ditch feature that defines what a henge is. Okay, so now I'm stood in the central henge, the middle one, and as you can see, the earthwork here is much more complete, as high as it was, up to 5 metres high, they think, although it is broken down in some places. Archaeological digs here suggested that this was covered in white gypsum, which is a very shiny stone quarried from nearby, probably topped with that, so it basically shone in the sunshine and was visible even at night, quite light against the dark sky. Yes, so from here I'm stood right next to one of the earthworks, and you can see just how high it is, up to 5 metres in its heyday, lined with white gypsum, so it would have been a really bright monument. The central henge actually was built on top of a cursus, a rectangular shaped cursus, which would have been about 1,000 years older, so really early Stone Age, and nobody knows the purpose of that, but you can see that from maps, and there's evidence of it actually over there on the western side of this henge. There's a ditch. A cursus is an avenue with ditches on either side and is a common feature of Stone Age sites, often predating most of the large human constructions in the landscape. They are one of the earliest practices of Stone Age communities that changed the landscape in a big way. The one at Thornborough is 44 metres wide and lies beneath a central henge, running for over a kilometre from the River Ure to Thornborough village. And yeah, up to 1,000 years older than the henges themselves, which are already 4,500 years old. So this rectangular cursus, 5,500 years old. Stone Age. The existence of the cursus here is consistent with other ancient henge sites throughout Britain too, highlighting that the henges here were built upon what was already valuable sacred ground. In other words, this was a ritualistic landscape for many generations before the henges were built, and shows how such places evolve and change over time. So this whole site that the henges are built on, and the cursus of course, is sacred landscape, ancient landscape used for thousands of years by ancient people in the act of worship. The reason the henges have got entrances, 2 entrances on each one, is probably, not for certain, but probably because they were used for some sort of ceremonial procession at some part of the year, maybe several parts of the year. So why did these early communities consider this landscape sacred? What made it stand out? The truth is, nobody really knows, because these places were built by people that didn't write anything down. So all we can do is make educated hypotheses. Inhabitants of places like Anglesey and Orkney didn't really have much choice on their small islands to be picky about sites. So the islands themselves usually became sacred. But what's interesting about places like Thornborough and down at Salisbury Plain, where Stonehenge is located, is that they seem to all sit on lowland areas not far from water sources. It's possible that many of the ditches found across such landscapes were actually filled with water as part of ritualistic manipulation of the landscape. After all, water is as valuable to life as the sun. Speaking of which, let's look again at the slight kink in the alignment of the henges. Now, why would ancient people go through the trouble of building such large constructions if they're going to put them out of alignment? Well, whenever 3 things are out of alignment like this, the obvious assumption is that they line up with the 3 stars of Orion's belt, like is often said of the 3 major pyramids at Giza. And here at Thornborough, that alignment seems incredibly accurate. And why not? In the ancient world, the sky at night provided an endless canvas of wonder and curiosity upon which many myths, legends, rituals, and even major religions were based. Ancient cultures around the world worshipped heavenly bodies, not just the sun and moon, but the stars, great and small. And there's also a lot of indications that the entrances of the 3 henges, which do not align with each other, do in fact align with the setting of the moon. And the much older cursus probably has a solar alignment. Other details of the surrounding landscape are also fascinating. Thornborough Henges don't exist in isolation, but are part of a tapestry of ancient features dotted across the plain here, many of which have yet to be studied. There are more traces of ditches, rings, barrows, and further afield there are even other henges at Cinderbury, Nunwick and Catterick. And most interestingly, there seems to be the possibility of a larger ring on the outside of the most northerly henge. Now, this henge isn't open to the public as it sits on private land still. And on the Historic England mapping software I've been using so far, its features have been left off. So this northern henge remains a huge mystery to amateurs like me. All we are told is that this is the best preserved of the 3 henges. But what mysteries are lying in wait beneath that dark tree canopy? And this is the third henge, the northern henge, as you can see, covered in forest. Now I'm very lucky this is private land. I've been given permission just to have a quick look around, and you can see the forest, actually possibly the private land aspect of this has meant it's been protected from erosion much more than the other two. You can see here there's a ring ditch that I'm walking on now, a ring embankment, sorry, and then a ditch down, and then a lot of earth in the middle there. But over here on the other side there's also a very shallow ditch going round with a bit of an earthwork as well. Once again we see the concentric ring design of banking and ditches, but in this northern henge those features haven't been worn down like the other two, but have remained prominent. The most important thing to note are that there's a deep ditch within the woodland, and of course traces of a second on the outside in the fields. The embankment appears to be less prominent, but that's possible because the ditches are so deep, and the centre is still very raised by comparison. There are entrances at opposite ends which look northwest across the flat plain. More hints that anybody standing at the centre of the rings would have been able to look out and see some astronomical alignment taking place at certain times of the year. So just want to wander into the centre of this henge to see if there's anything significant to see. The fact that it's raised up higher than a ditch around it. This is surrounded, really, it's not surrounded with earthwork like the other two. This is more or less surrounded with a ditch. It's like the opposite. It's like the carbon copy. But this is the centre now. And I don't know how long these trees have been here, but it already gives it kind of that sacred kind of feel to it. I almost feel like I'm in a church and I should lower my voice. It's beautiful, look at this grove. Sites like this fell into disuse in the mid to late Iron Age and were probably viewed with a mixture of trepidation and mockery by the Romans when they invaded Britain. Since then the bright white gypsum has gone and the monument has worn down. And as you can see, this entire sacred landscape has been taken over by the most prominent feature of the English countryside today: privately owned fields of grass. The whole site was threatened a few years ago by the nearby quarry wanting to excavate closer and closer, but it's now in the hands of Historic England and operated by English Heritage. It's only just been opened up to the public. Today it makes an interesting place to stop off if you're able to drive here. There's so much mystery about this huge site that it's hard not to just wish you could go back several thousand years and see the huge walls of gypsum shining in the moonlight beneath a glittering starry sky. When all this was open land without a fence in sight, and the earth seemed to go on forever in all directions. So there you go, Thornborough Henges. And in videos past I've said it's a shame because the north of England doesn't seem to have very many significant ancient sites. We don't have the big megaliths of Scotland, Wales and southern England. But actually, you don't need huge stones to have an impressive ancient site. And this place shows it. So from the centre of the third henge, in a very beautiful sacred grove, and not many people come to see. Thanks for watching, catch you next one, bye. And by the way, if you've ever dreamed of owning your own ancient henge covered in mysterious haunting woodland and happen to have a spare 200 grand lying down the back of your sofa, then the third henge at Thornborough is currently for sale. Which of course says a lot about land ownership in this country and how our obsession with private property extends to rare pieces of our own shared history. But hey, it's got character.